So I'm kind of sick of all these like tips videos. So basically what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to tell you how I fish a hair jig. It's my hair jig 101, so it's what I think they're good for and how I use them. I showed you a couple examples, a couple fish, the way I'm catching them. So this is just the way I catch them. It might work for you, it might not, but I'm not going to go through all like a bunch of crap that I don't know about. I'm just going to tell you how I fish them, how I use them, and what I use them on. Hair Jigs 101. So first off, since this is an unconventional tip video, I gotta send a shout out to Matt Rhodes. His hat on my head. So dude freaking liked the floral hats. He bought one and he shipped it to me, and I actually really like it. So props, Matt. Thanks, dude. I like the hat. So let's get into the beef then. Hair jigs. Alright, so we're gonna start with the simple stuff. I literally have 2 hair jigs and 1 collar on my boat. And if it comes back, I got this guy. It's 5/8. It's the JTK hair jig by Gambler. And then I also have a 3/4. I use the 3/4 when it's really windy, when there's a lot of current. I'll use the 5/8 probably 75 to 85% of the time. So now I'm going to take a pause and I'm going to have a dip, because once again this is an unconventional video, and I'll get right back with you. Cool, had a dip. So let's chat about hair jigs some more. So when I'm using these jokers, it's all about suspended fish. And you know, suspended fish doesn't mean like they're way off the bottom. You saw that little graphing like cut, that B-roll deal, and they're way up. They're like 8-9 foot off the bottom, even more, and that's ideal. But even if they're like 2 to 4 foot off the bottom, that's still a good time to pull out a hair jig. And the reason being, the retrieve you're using, as you saw, I'm kind of like reeling with a little bit of flick. So you want to kind of reel 3 or 4 times, flick the bait up a little bit, and then just let it fall. And you're not letting it fall on a slack line. It's a controlled slack line. You're basically just leaving your bail closed and letting it pendulum down, and those fish will smack it. So we already talked about a couple keys. You know, not going way too heavy, and also working that pendulum on a non-slack line. That's really important to get the action out of the hair jig you're looking for. And suspended fish, that's when you want it. I don't care if they're suspended in a school like you saw right there. I've caught them suspended over a brush pile, over a structure. You got to time it a little bit more when you're fishing structure, because it is, you know, it's an open hook, so you can get hung up. But if you time it just right, you can get that bait up there and really attack those suspended fish. And they're hard to catch on a lot of other baits. I can usually catch them on a swim bait, or maybe like a scrounger head, like a jerky J style bait. But that hair jig, when they're suspended, I get big bites. And with this guy, with that hook, I get really good hookups. So let's talk setup really quick. I'm a firm believer that you need like a moderate action rod. This is like a 7, I think, yeah, 7.2. It's a medium. Oh, it's medium heavy. Well, you know what? I kind of thought it was a little more medium. It might be a little more medium, but it's moderate action. You know, you can go up to a 7.6, down to a 7 foot, but you really need a more moderate action. You're gonna feel like those fish tick the bait, or you're gonna feel weight, but you really need the rod to load up a lot. It's a lot like crankbait fishing in a manner of speaking, but you're not always moving the bait. So magic pound test, I would say 12. You can go down to 10, but 12 seems to be like the deal. Like when it comes down to it, 12 is enough to really control the fish and fight the fish, but at the same time you want to stay light because you don't want to infringe on that fall, on that, you know, controlled fall, because that's really the most important part about hair jig fishing. Reel wise, you don't want to go super fast. I know a lot of guys will use like a 7.21. I run like a 6.21 or a 6.31. It's this guy right here. It's a little older Corrado, but that'll do the job. You don't want to move that bait too quick. You want to be able to reel quick, but you don't want to move the bait too quick. So a really big key that really makes a difference, and this has to do when you actually get bit, I always keep my drag super duper tight. Like it's almost locked down, not totally, but it's almost locked down. You really want that tight, especially if you're using that moderate action rod, which I prefer, because you're letting the rod do the work of the drag. You're getting a lot of bend, especially right when you hook up. But the moment you hook up, you want to be loosening that drag, because basically those fish, at least our fish down here, they bulldog, dude. They bulldog hardcore, and sometimes they do it way out, sometimes they do it when they see the boat. But hook them up, drag lock down, get a good hook set, let the rod kind of do that parabolic action so that it fights the fish for you. But immediately when you hook up with that fish and you got a solid hook set, loosen up that drag, let those fish run, because with this hook, if you're using the JTK hair jig, you'll be good to go. So last key, and like I said, this is an unconventional hair jig 101. This is what I do because this is what I know how to do, and this is how I'm catching them. But vary your retrieve, play with stuff. Most of the time you're going to be able to get them on like a few reels, let it fall on controlled slack line, few reels, let it fall back to the bottom. When your line goes slack because you know you're on the bottom, reel again. But you really want to play around with it. I know my little brother caught a few when he'd actually like jerk the bait up. You almost fish it like a spoon. Also, I mean, if you watch like the Elite Series or anything like that, you'll see those jokers. They're reeling, then they kill it, reel, kill it. So you want to play with the retrieve or the cadence until you figure out something that works. But in general, it's that reel, maybe twitch a little bit, and then freaking let it go to the bottom. But that's kind of the key overall. Big things, suspended fish. If you got fish suspended, if they're 2 foot off the bottom, 9 foot off the bottom, you have to adjust your retrieve to get that bait to ride where you're seeing them on the graph. Trust your graph. But that's the biggest key. Then play with your retrieve, go at them, and I guarantee you're going to catch some big fish, because that hair jig has something magical about it where the big ones eat it. Oh, one thing, by the way, only need one color, and I don't really care where you're fishing. All you need is this. It's the Shad color by Gambler. It's got a little green in the feathers, but it's white. You don't got to get super technical with colors. You don't need a million different ones. Just some white with a little bit of green in it, and as long as your water is like a little bit clear or slightly stained and slightly green, you're gonna catch them on it. So that's Hair Jigs 101. Get yourself some, give it a try with that setup. You might need to play around with cadence. You might need to play a little bit around with what kind of equipment you have. Don't go over a 7.6, don't go under a 7-foot rod. Really recommend that moderate action, but it's an awesome way to fish. You catch some freaking giants, and those suspended fish, nobody can catch them. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people can catch them, so it's a great way to tap into them.